The German writer Erich Maria Remarque published his first novel in Western Nicht Neues, All Quiet on the Western Front in English, in 1929. The book was a huge success, and within a short time 7,500,000 copies were sold. As an incentive to secure the exclusive rights to a second novel, the Berlin publisher Hermann Holstein bought Remarque a Lancia Dilambda Spider with bodywork by Voll und Urbeck. Remarque was a car enthusiast, and in the 5 years before the publication of his successful book, he had written articles on sport and lifestyle for the magazine Sport in Bild. The Lancia Lambda was considered an high-performance car to drive at the time, thanks to the rigidity of this chassis, which allowed it to take curves better than any other car of the period. However, the relatively low power of his engine, a 4-cylinder 2.5-liter with 69 horsepower, did not fully satisfy the writer's needs. So Remarque went to the Lancia dealer of Berlin, Emil Hubel, to find out about the new Lancia Mobile, which, as the brochure report, had a 4-liter 8-cylinder engine with 100 horsepower. The new Lancia Dilambda model was introduced at the Paris Motor Show in October 1929, and despite the financial crisis caused by the Wall Street crash, more than 850 units were sold in the first year of production. Lancia's aim was to produce a chassis with high-performance characteristics capable of competing in the crowded sector of the high-end cars with 8-cylinder engines, especially in the United States, where the Zotta-Fraschini and Duesenberg chassis were highly appreciated. As usual, the Touring Company developed specific and very innovative technical solutions for this model. The low-profile chassis was made up of box side members, stiffened with a central X-shaped crossmember inside with decentralized lubrication circuit passed. The fuel tank was used as a large section transverse element to further stiffen the rear area. The independent front suspension, a Lancia patent, was derived from that of the Lambda, the famous sliding pillar with coil springs, but improved and increased in section. At the rear, a rigid axle with an R4 type mechanical clutch shock absorber were used, with leaf springs supported by silent blocks. The braking system was hydraulic on the 4 wheels with central distributor, another Lancia patent. Even the headlights, built by Carello, were specific to this model and shaped by the young Battista Farina, who designed a profile that recalled the Lancia shield. The chassis alone, complete with 6-wheel and a toolbox, cost on the US market half compared to the Duesenberg J, which had a 6.88-liter engine and 245 horsepower, and third to the Zotta-Fraschini 8A with a 7.37-liter engine and 150 horsepower. Furthermore, the Touring Company had been recently building the Dilambda also in a short wheelbase version of 329 cm. Remarque ordered a short wheelbase chassis. We had a list price of 9,250 Reichsmarks and had it delivered to the same body shop where they had built his Lambda Spider. The Wolf und Urbeck body shop was located in Charlottenburg, in the same district of Berlin where Hubel had his showroom. Remarque opted for the 4-seater Spider Cabriolet body type, and together with his girlfriend at the time, Brigitte Neuer, they chose the type of running boards, the size of the trunk, the fabric for the interior, a light-colored canvas hood, and finally the body color, Hohenzollern Grau, combined with grey wool for the seats. Mr. Voll assured him that they would have the car ready in 5 weeks. Eventually the car was nicknamed by the couple Der Graue Puma, the Grey Puma in English. The delivery of the new car to Remarque coincided with the publication of his new novel, Der Weg zurück, The Way Back in English. Unfortunately, clouds of obscurantism were covering the sky of Europe, and Germany was the first nation where the political situation became extremely complicated. In February 1932, a few weeks after the nomination of Adolf Hitler as Reichskanzler, Remarque's books were banned and burned, while regime propaganda spread a completely unfounded rumor that the writer was a descendant of French Jews, even if he was Catholic. Protected by a small circle of trusted friends, Remarque was made aware that of the Sturmabteilung, so-called brown shirts, were looking for him. That same evening, the writer got into the car with his trusty Irish Terrier Billy and left for Switzerland. Thereafter, he never returned to Germany until the end of the war. In the following years, the Dilambda Cabriolet accompanied him on all his travel to Italy and France. Remarque only had a problem with ignition in 1938 when he was in Lyon with his new partner Marlene Dietrich and her daughter Maria Riva. The Dietrich daughter also remembers this and other episodes in her diary and also remember how much the writer loved that car. The news of the Poland invasion in September 1939 reached them while they were on holiday in Antibes. Her mother Marlene, who was in the USA under contract with the Paramount Studios for the shooting of a film, sent a telegram informing her husband Rudolf Sieber to notify urgently Remarque, who was thinking of returning home to Switzerland. The Gestapo was monitoring the Italian border. So, on September 26th, the writer, his dog, and Maria Riva reached Paris about the Dilambda, followed later by Sieber. Once they arrived in front of the Hotel Lancaster in Rue de Paris, the Dilambda's engines gave out, and the car was stored in a nearby garage. The garage owner hid the car under a tarpaulin and was paid not to reveal its presence. Unfortunately, Remarque did not have a boarding ticket and did not even find one available at the office of the Cunard Line Company in Cherbourg. So, Marlene Dietrich asked to the American ambassador in London, Joseph Patrick Kennedy, to intercede with the shipping company. The three eventually boarded the ocean liner Queen Mary and set sail from the port of Cherbourg on September 30th, bound to New York. The crossing lasted 9 days. While the Lambda given to him by his publisher Ullstein in 1929 was confiscated by the German government in 1933 for alleged tax debts, the Lancia Dilambda was found in 1940 in Paris by the occupying German forces. But since it had a Swiss license plate and no documents, it wasn't legally possible to obtain its seizure. After the World War II, the American Armed Forces organized an office in France for the restitution of French assets confiscated by the Germans during the occupation, and valuable assets also include cars. The Swiss license plates were reported to the Automobile Club de Suisse, who organized his repatriation at the end of 1945. This administrative order was how Remarque learned that his Lancia had been found and returned, but it was only 1948, when the writer returned to his home in Porto Ronco in Switzerland, that he was able to get her back. Eventually the car was repaired and repainted. Remarque used it almost daily since then. In 1954, Remarque met the American actress Pauline Marion Levy, aka Paulette Goddard, in St. Moritz. During the journey back to Milan, enthusiastic about his car, Pauline confessed to him that in the past she had owned a Dilambda Cabriolet too, which was given her as a gift by a lover. In 1958, the two married and used the Dilambda for their honeymoon in Venice. In 1963, the American journalist Griffith Borgeson, during a car trip in Switzerland with his wife, noticed a Lancia Dilambda parked near the Remarque's villa. The couple was received at the writer's house the next day. They had a pleasant conversation with him, at the end of which they convinced him to reflect on the possibility of selling the car to them. The following month, Remarque contacted Borgeson, who returned to the villa to collect the car. Unfortunately, the mechanical condition of the vehicle were poor, and they barely managed to return to Turin, where they lived at the time. A few years passed before the car was able to be brought back to full working order, and it was repainted in beige color with light brown fenders and footboards. The restoration of the engine was carried out at Turin at the Almo Bosato workshop, a well-known preparer for the Scuderia Lanciacorse cars, while Kyle Hubbard had the muffler rebuilt in this factory. Unfortunately, due to a misunderstanding with the upholsterer, the fabric to redo the inside of the soft top was positioned externally instead. When the Borgeson family decided to move to France for work, they put the restored Dilambda up for sale. And it was at this point the two Milanese brothers purchased it in 1967. In 1970, a second restoration was started, which brought the car back to its original grey color. On the centenary of the writer's birth, an official event was organized in his memory in Osnabrück in Lower Saxony, his birthplace and home to the Peace Center named after him in 1996. The exhibition was organized in collaboration with the local university, which preserved his personal archive, also included a display of his Lancia Dilambda at the Hotel Remarque. The presentation of Remarque's Lancia Dilambda in Osnabrück was an unique occasion both for the city and for Germany, and the exhibition was widely known and successful. Today, the car resides in the same collection at Milan. Many thanks for watching. Please subscribe and share this video.